Demon's Souls Remake on the PlayStation 5 has been keeping players busy since the day it came out, and there's nothing more famous within the Souls game than its bosses. They can lead to hours and hours of anger and frustration from even the most veteran players, but can also be the most rewarding experience possible when finally conquered. However, not all bosses are equal in difficulty. This is my personal ranking of all Demon's Souls Remake bosses from easiest to hardest. Coming in at number 18 is King Allant, and it's so sad the final boss in this game is also the easiest boss in this game. King Allant, he awakened the Old One to murder and cleanse all of humanity, and while this is going down, he crawled inside the Old One itself, and the power of the Old One corrupted him and turned him into this pile of flesh here, which he just simply sits there. I mean, he literally just sits there. He can attack you a little bit, however, his attack is fairly weak and pretty uncommon. You just simply sit back and wail away at the poor king until he is no more. Coming in at number 17 is the Adjudicator, and he makes regular enemies in the game look hard. He is essentially just a massive blob of a crow roosting on top, which is also his weak point. He has a few attacks like his wickedly long tongue and a butcher's cleaver. However, these are super easy to avoid as you just wail away at his wounded side, causing him to topple over, and that opens him up for the perfect time to attack the crow. You can also just stand back and shoot the crow with arrows or magic, which makes an easy fight even easier. My question has always been though, is the crow actually part of the demon and controls the whole body and everything? Or is the crow just perched on top, taking advantage of a massive demon with a probable low intelligence? Coming at number 16 is Dirty Colossus. After going through all the miserable swamps of the Valley of Defilement, I think the game knew that we deserved an easy boss. While Dirty Colossus is the culmination of everything the level has to offer with insects and sludge, it is incredibly easy to avoid literally all of this in the boss fight. If you just simply stay behind him, he is too slow to ever reach around and attack you or unleash any of his more damaging attacks. Honestly, this fight can be over in less than a minute. The PHALANX at number 15 is the first non-tutorial boss that you encounter in the game, and it's a very easy one to start the game off with. It gets its name from the Roman phalanx and structures itself exactly the same. The boss is simply just a blob with an army of hoplites guarding it with their shields and spears. Just toss a few firebombs in there to clear them all out, and it's a nearly defenseless blob just waiting for you to lay waste to. Coming in at number 14 is the first boss in the Valley of Defilement, and fitting for the area, the LEECHMONGER. The LEECHMONGER is an enormous collection of leeches that just oozes around the level. He's able to throw leech balls which gradually eat away at your health, and he's also able to do some sweeping attacks, but truth be told, all of these attacks are fairly weak. Just get close to him and start slicing away, and battle will be over before you even know it. A very easy boss. Coming in at number 13 is the Fool's Idol. Souls games love their duplication bosses, and it seems that this is where it all started. She creates multiple clones of herself, and it's up to you to find out which one is really her in order to deal any damage. There are several telltale signs, such as looking to see which one is being worshipped by the prisoners, but even without that, it's pretty easy to find out which one is the real one. The fight gets annoying though when you get stuck in these magic circles and paralyzed for a bit while they all shoot their little laser beam thingies. I guess it's magic, not lasers. But outside of that, the fight is a piece of cake. Just make sure to kill the magician above the area from the tower beforehand, otherwise she will continue to be revived over and over and over. At number 12 is the Dragon God. Now, while being enormous and appearing extremely threatening, it's not an actual fight but more of an obstacle course. You simply clear out the broken pillars to make your way to these two harpoon guns and fire at the sides of the dragon. And then when he's almost dead, he just sort of falls down and you just stand back and attack the head until the battle is over. Truth be told, the ending of the battle is almost sad because you're just standing there killing a defenseless beast. At number 11 is the Storm King. And if you thought the last battle was sad, this is the pinnacle of sadness for the game. Sure, the storm beasts are attacking you throughout the level, but the final nesting area of them just makes it feel like you are massacring an entire species to harvest the souls. I mean, listen to the cries as you murder them all. The battle itself isn't too bad once you run to the base of the cliff and retrieve the Storm Ruler's sword. The sword shoots massive wind strikes at the king until it cries its last cry and comes crashing to the ground. At number 10 is the Maiden Australia and her guard, Garl Vinland, and they are the final boss of the Valley of Defilement, and depending on how you go about the battle, it can be really easy or pretty average. Now if you do have powerful arrows at all, I highly recommend just simply standing back and shooting at her until she dies. Now she will try to heal herself, but if your arrows are powerful enough, you got nothing to worry about here. Now if you are pure melee, you will have to go through Garl Vinland first, and he's a bit of a tougher fight, especially if you get stuck in that plague blood with those little babies hopping up all around you. Not only is it disgusting, it's really difficult. However, if you bait him up the stairs, he fights like all the other knights in all the Souls games. He's not that bad. So overall, Maiden Australia is the last of what I call the super easy bosses in the game. At number 9 is one of my favorite looking bosses in the entire game, and it really showcases what the PlayStation 5 can handle graphics wise. And this is of course the Armor Spider. The Spider is the first boss in the smithing grounds and has some really unique attacks to try to trip you up, from limiting your mobility with webbing to literally setting the entire floor on fire. The fight is just a ton of fun. However, once you get in close and you really learn when to block and run and position yourself correctly, the fight is not bad at all. But the Armored Spider is probably the first of the bosses where you actually have to learn their attack pattern in order to succeed. And of course, this is a core aspect of any Souls game. Coming in number 8 is the Old Hero, and he's located at the close of what seems like the longest, most difficult tunnel in the entire game with no shortcuts to help you get there. But once you're there, the battle isn't necessarily an easy reward. The Old Hero is a blind boss who listens to where you're at to know where to attack. It's fairly easy to avoid him detecting you until you strike that first blow, and after that, he is hyper aware of your location for a solid 30 seconds. Running and hiding is your best option, but even that can be pretty difficult while you're trying to get him to lose sight of you. But once he does, it's back to your old sneak attacks. The Thief Ring really does help immensely with this fight, but overall, this is where the fights are starting to get a little bit on the tough side. Coming in at number 7 is Vanguard. He's a weird boss for this list because you are meant to lose to him on your first encounter. He's the final boss of the tutorial, so you're fighting him before you upgrade your character in any way. When you battle him that early in the game, he can basically one-shot you, and with such a tiny room and him being such a huge guy, it's just a matter of time before it happens. Now it is possible to defeat him in the tutorial, but most players don't. However, when you do encounter him later in the game, he is significantly easier due to your leveling up, and you'll probably take him out first try. But he's this high on the list because the first time you encounter him, he's almost certainly gonna kill you. Coming at number 6 is the Tower Knight. He's another boss where you have to learn the attack pattern in order to succeed. Stay too far away from him, you'll get blasted. Stay at medium length, you'll get stabbed. Stay too close and circling around him, slicing those ankles, well, that's just perfect. But it's also fairly hard to stay behind him endlessly, so you have to learn how to dodge the moves he has in store for you. Like I said, the key is to slice those ankles and he'll eventually fall. When he falls, it opens him up for multiple attacks right on his head. Of course, rinse and repeat the whole method a few times and he'll be toast. But for being such an early fight in the game, it really forces players to start to understand that some of these boss fights will require skill and brain power to beat instead of just hacking away. Coming in number 5 is the old monk in his magical robe or magical headdress or magical blanket or magical fabric. Whatever it is, it makes absolutely no sense. The fight itself can go many different directions though, because he can be an NPC or he can be a summoned player to battle against you. He's got several attacks at his disposal, but the ones the NPC uses the most are going to be the homing soul arrows. He's tough to ever really get the space between you and him to get healed up or to avoid those arrows, so I always say use the chairs to your advantage. However, all this is completely out the window if an invading player gets to be the old monk. When this happens, the fight can be way easier, but it's usually way, way, way harder. Coming in at number 4 is the Penetrator. And before you get to the final in-game bosses, you do have to go through him, and he gets his name from literally stabbing his sword right through you, dealing massive amounts of damage before slamming you back into the floor and across the level. He has extremely powerful attacks, and it could take a few tries to really understand the order of them all to know what to expect. The fight can be made easier if you rescue Bjorn from his prison cell prior to the fight, because he keeps him distracted while you can do your little sneak attacks here and there, but it's a great night fight and it sets the stage for many more of these in the upcoming Souls games. Coming in at number 3 is the old King Allant, who is often referred to in this form as the False King, because this is merely a demon that was created by Allant to look and act like him during his peak years while he continued to mutate inside of the Old One. Now, despite being a false king, Old King Allant is a powerful foe to deal with. His attacks are super fast, deal a ton of damage, and stagger you very quickly. He even has one move that literally steals your last soul level, meaning every time you fight him, the fight gets harder because you are weaker. There's no way to just simply get in there and hack away. You are forced to memorize his moveset to know what to expect in order to defeat him. The best bet is just simply to get back at a distance and force him to do the more predictable of the moves, but this was a great final fight to close the game off with, even if it wasn't the most difficult one in the game. At number 2 is the Maneater, or Man-Eaters I suppose, and I'll be honest, I hated fighting these two demons because every time I got close to beating them, they'd charge at me and off the edge I'd go. If they didn't fight you on such a narrow ledge, the fight would be way easier. However, unless you lead them to the center fire pillar, the edge is where you're going to be fighting the entire battle pretty much. Do your best to kill the first one off before the second one arrives, because 2 at once is nearly impossible to do for very long. Your best bet is just simply to make sure that your character is powerful enough to deal enough damage to really kill the first one off fast. Coming in at number 1 is the Flame Lurker, and my lord, I hated this boss. Not only does it take a solid 5 minutes of falling down rafters to get to him, he's by far the hardest boss in the game once you're there. While different phases of boss fights is common in the later Souls games, this is the only boss in this game to have 3 separate phases. You come across him fairly early in the game, so your low level doesn't do you any favors. But between learning the moves and finding the best way to trap him, you can beat him when you encounter him early in the game. I did figure out there were some ways to cheese him, but without the cheeses, Flame Lurker is by far the hardest enemy in the game. So there we have it, the ranking of all 18 core bosses of the game. But who do you think was the hardest boss in the game? Comment down below and give your thoughts on the ranking of the Demon Souls bosses, and if you enjoyed this ranking, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and as always, go out there, find a great game to play, just simply have a great rest of the day.